the youth organization was expelled from the party precisely because of its uncompromising nationalism. Sweden for the Swedes. What a crazy thing to suggest.
Någon gång i framtiden kommer du att blicka tillbaka på ditt liv och de val du gjort. När du stod inför de beslut som betydde något, gav du då upp eller följde du din övertygelse trots att det var svårt? Kom ihåg att inget som är värt att kämpa för någonsin är enkelt. Om du ska följa dina drömmar måste du hålla huvudet högt trots allt motstånd du kommer att möta. Från de som inte har den övertygelse som du har. Från de som inte vågar eller orkar tro på förändring. Sverige behöver utmanare. Människor som vågar säga sanningen även när det är obekvämt. Människor som vet att en förändring är möjlig. Nu står du inför ett viktigt val. Du kan rösta på samma gamla politiker som aldrig lyssnar på folket och som förstör ditt land. Eller så kan du välja ett alternativ till politikerna, ett alternativ för Sverige. När ett korrupt etablissemang säger att någonting är omöjligt är det upp till dig att visa att de har fel. När du kämpar för något du helhjärtat tror på så ger du aldrig upp. Du fortsätter framåt. Alternativ för Sverige är din rörelse och den 9 september har du ett val. Nu börjar resan för att ta tillbaka vårt land.
Det här är ett meddelande till alla resenärer som ska återvandra till Afghanistan, Somalia, Irak, Rumänien, Syrien, Eritrea, Turkiet, Uzbekistan och Marocko. Era flyg är redo för avfärd. Gå till gate. Ombordstigningen börjar nu. Observera att flygplanen abonneras av Återvandringsverket för invandrare som på olika sätt har missbrukat vår gästfrihet. Säg hej då till Sverige. Det är dags att åka hem.
AFS's election campaign is centered around a fictional Swedish government department that is responsible solely for the return of the vast number of third world migrants in the country. The party proclaims this message front and center, relentlessly.
Men det här är hög energi alltså! Det är hög energi! Och jag vill faktiskt passa på att tacka de här missanpassade invandrarna som verkligen visar det svenska folket varför återvandring är så angeläget. Vi kan prata varje dag, men det visar verkligen allting. Jag skulle inte behöva stå här och prata. Jag vill inte stå här och prata utan vi gör verkligen reklam för Alternativ för Sverige. Tack så jättemycket! Om man tvivlade på återvandringen så det var att titta på det här. Ifall man trampar dig på tår, var som ett solsken i april och vänd den glada sidan till. Jag säger det med leende och med en glimt i ögonvrån. Trots alla kassabrister, du måste med på lister för varje handa ändamål. Du vaknar mitt i natten och grubblar över skatten. Jag frågar
Vem säger det? Andra sidan soffan. 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 Andra sidan soffan.
Ha överseende ifall man trampar dig på tår. Var som ett solsken i april och vänd den glada sidan till. Jag säger det med leende och med en glimt i ögonvrån. Det blir inga integrationspengar för Jag lovar er allihopa, den dagen kommer. Jag önskar jag kunde säga att det var roligt så länge det varade. Jag önskar att jag kunde tacka för den här tiden, men det kan jag faktiskt heller inte göra. Tack för ingenting, ni som har kommit hit och bara belastat samhället. Tack för ingenting, men nu går vi skilda vägar. Och vänster får gärna följa med. Vänster får jättegärna följa med. Om det är så att man älskar afghanska män så mycket, ja då kan man följa med. För att vi kommer inte sakna er heller, det kan jag garantera.
The Swedish parliamentary candidate has claimed that he was attacked by a migrant at an Alternative for Sweden party rally in a town in the west of the country. Tensions flared during campaigning for a general election that's seen a surge in support for Eurosceptic right-wing parties. And next, as Maria Fanoshina reports says this afternoon, the country's also seeing a spike in crime levels too.
We've gotten used to pictures of shootings and car burnings from Sweden's so-called vulnerable neighborhoods, but the upcoming Swedish elections has brought violence to an everyday street.
One of my colleagues from Alternative for Sweden being attacked by an immigrant youth who attended the meeting and was screaming and shouting all over the meeting. I was attacked too. I tried to protect my friend and colleague, and this immigrant started hitting both of us in the face. Also, they threw eggs at our vehicle. When we left the scene, they ran after, and when we had to stop at the red light, they kicked at the car.
Swedish police never confirmed the attacker's ethnicity, but the party member referred to him as an immigrant. But that is not all. They blame immigrants for an overall high criminality rate and low security across the country, although the connection was never established officially. The alternative the party offers to Sweden is sealed borders and immigrants sent back to where they came from.
The person writing it had actually ties to ISIS as well, Expressen reported. The Social Democrats, the left, and to a certain extent the Green Party, they are seeing a large immigrant number as their key to continue to maintain political power in the country.
Name one time in history when the people banning books, censoring information, and silencing opinions were the good guys. The only reason you censor something is because you're panicking. The facts of the left don't stand up to free speech and logic. They can only progress their narrative through censorship.
En natt då Sveriges framtid ska bestämmas.
Reports have been coming in from all over the country about polling stations that are missing ballots. Facebook posts by local politicians describe how they had taken ballots from the Sweden Democrats and AFS, Alternative for Sweden, and disposed of them illegally. These people are admitting to such behavior, and they need to be investigated and, of course, prosecuted.
Ni har inte våra valsedlar heller? det här har vi lämnat tidigare idag. Ja, det där är inte okej alltså. Det där är våldfusk. Det där är våldfusk. Vem är ansvarig?
There is enough smoke to indicate a fire, and it's not unreasonable or irrational to think that people of the liberal cult, the globalists, would do these undemocratic actions in order to, in their views, safeguard what they see as undemocratic parties such as Sweden Democrats and Alternative for Sweden and some others.
2 valarbetare och en väljare i Nynäshamn har blivit attackerade. Hur känner du till det här och vad tycker du om det?
Faktiskt helt nytt för mig, så det får jag kolla upp. Det låter illa.
Det är från Sverigedemokraterna kan vi säga också.
Reports of people threatened at polling stations. One example, a Sweden Democrat chairman in Nynäshamn, Emilia Urpana, was threatened to have her, quote, head bashed in and, quote, murdered by 2 intolerant migrants who threatened her due to her political leanings. She was called a racist and a bastard, and as they threatened her, they started to take swings at her, and as she is pregnant, and she was actually afraid that they would punch her in the stomach. In several places around the country, people have observed that immigrant Muslim men have handed ballots to their wives and others in their local community and directing them where to go, what to do, and ultimately who to vote for. Now, this is illegal in Sweden. In another case, a helper, as they call them, had shouted a name of a specific party to get the larger group that he was directing to vote for this party. This is more of a tribal attitude. This is a new phenomenon in Sweden where we are accustomed to, of course, expecting that each individual think for themselves and make up their own mind and vote for who they want to. But this is a new and exciting, spicy and vibrant development in our country. We have many reports of people that showed up to vote and they have already been checked off in the electoral roll, the voter registry. In other words, their identity documents have already been used to place a vote for them ahead of time. So they are not allowed to vote, they are turned away. Not sure how they have done this, but enough examples have been posted to social media to be concerned that something beyond just sloppy mistakes is at work here.
The sooner you wake up to the system and the sooner you wake up to how much trouble we're all in, the sooner we can turn this around.
Länsstyrelsen, the county administrative board website that oversees the counting of the votes, was for, they say, safety reasons taken down during the evening as results started coming in. The election authority instead pointed people to SVT and other mainstream media news sources for incoming results.
Fredagskväll. För efter debatten då tog SVT alltså avstånd från ett av Jimmy Åkessons uttalanden under den delen av debatten som handlade om invandring och jobb och som man kallade för grovt generaliserande.
Då tog SVT alltså avstånd från ett av Jimmy Åkessons uttalanden. SVT alltså avstånd.
Now what is interesting here is that no one has explained what then happened on the back end that allowed SVT or other mainstream news sources to continue being fed results and showing us these results. Was it just the front end of the site that was down? Can we see a record or a log of the counting, making sure that all of this actually went as it should have gone? But more worrying is that trends for the respective parties begun to change and alter at this point when the sites went down. For example, Sweden Democrats' results started going down significantly and Social Democrats started going up. Even val.se, the main site for the election authority, was down during an extended period. No explanation for this yet either. The alternative news site nyadagbladet.se and newsvoice.se that both published articles with further information about the potentiality of election fraud had issues with their sites. Nya Dagbladet had their accounts terminated by the web hosting company without any notice or reason given. But then also other news sites such as friatider.se, Free Times, were also subjected to DDoS attacks. This looks like a coordinated attack to shut down dissenting views that put attention to this potential voter fraud. A Danish independent election observer, Mikael Astrup Jensen from the OSCE, Organization for Cooperation and Security in Europe, called the Swedish election the most undemocratic he has ever seen. Jensen, who is from the left, Denmark's Liberal Party, has been to Russia to observe the elections there, but said that Sweden is well below the European standard, worse than anything he's seen.
Jag vet vem som har vunnit det här valet. Det är Sverigedemokraterna. Så är det. Beredd att ta ansvar. Jag är beredd att prata med alla. Vi stärker vår vågmästarroll. Vi ökar våra mandat i riksdagen. Vi ser att vi kommer att få ett oerhört inflytande över det som händer i Sverige under de närmsta veckorna, de närmsta månaderna, de närmsta åren. Och det kan ingen ta ifrån oss.
Genomföra det som finns i överenskommelsen eftersom det är den största konstellationen.
Kommer du att äta upp en högersko nu? Kommer du att äta upp en högersko nu?
Och det kan ingen ta ifrån oss.
This is democracy, Swedish style, the most open, safe and least corrupt country in the world, they say, where war is peace and lies is truth.
Election fraud, treason, sedition, crimes against humanity.
This is a call for help to the American people. Sweden used to be one of the world's safest countries. The Swedish society was characterized by strong unity and trust. That society is gone. Uncontrolled mass immigration from the third world, a poisonous political correctness, and a corrupt establishment have plunged Sweden into crisis. Sweden is collapsing. In order to not become a minority in our own country, we have to act now. We need your help, America. With the election of Donald Trump, you've proven that the silent majority can change the course of a nation. You've shown that the voice of the people matters. And you have demonstrated that it is possible to win against the corrupt establishment.
We're in a situation where we have put together, and you guys did it for our the President Obama's administration before this. We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
I'm wondering what's going on here. This dude has a fit about something. And then flips off a ballot and then crumples it up. Oh, Trump. You gotta do what you gotta do. Fuck Trump. Got around 80.
I just voted fucking twice.
This lady is marking the ballots. I filmed her a half hour ago doing 6, and she's still working at it. And there's a security guard right there who's watching her. The cops are in on it.
Hey, look at this piece of shit. Changing somebody's vote. I wonder what he's changing it to. And do you know what's going to happen to him? Nothing. And he's doing it right on a live feed. He probably doesn't even know. because he's a dumbass. And apparently, if you post this on Twitter, they block your account. They lock you out of your account for suspicious activity.
All right, so I'm checking on the Michigan Voter Information Center for William Bradley, born in March of 1902. Our friend is registered to vote, received his application, sent his ballot, and his ballot was received and counted.
My name is Brian McCaffrey. I'm a registered Democrat in the city of Philadelphia. Today, I'm at the Philadelphia Convention Center, and I am overseeing the ballot counters. I will let you know the corruption that is going on here. They will not allow us within 30 to 100 feet to supervise the ballots being counted. This is a coup against the President of the United States of America.
This may be the most important speech I've ever made. I want to provide an update on our ongoing efforts to expose the tremendous voter fraud and irregularities which took place during the ridiculously long November 3rd elections. We used to have what was called Election Day. Now we have election days, weeks and months, and lots of bad things happened during this ridiculous period of time.
There's going to be patterns in each state. Because once you see the pattern of cheating, it's no longer a coincidence, it's no longer a glitch, it's no longer an error. If there is election fraud in the United States and it's proven, what's happening in all the other countries? Are we actually voting for our leader? Or are elections all reeked with fraud? Yes, this is going to spread worldwide.
Then we won't know the full end result of the election tonight either, because there are still votes that you can vote per mail, and then they are counted tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. So on Wednesday or Thursday we know.
We were told repeatedly that it would take weeks, if not months, to determine the winner, to count the absentee ballots, and to verify the results. I want to explain the corrupt mail-in balloting scheme that Democrats systematically put into place that allowed voting to be altered, especially in swing states, which they had to win. They just didn't know that it was going to be that tough, because we were leading in every swing state by so much, far greater than they ever thought possible. In other words, in Wisconsin, as an example, where we were way up on election night, they ultimately had us miraculously losing by 20,000 votes. And I can show you right here that Wisconsin, we're leading by a lot. And then at 3:42 in the morning, there was this. It was a massive dump of votes. Mostly Biden, almost all Biden. And to this day, everyone's trying to figure out, where did it come from? But I went from leading by a lot to losing by a little. In Michigan, a career employee of the city of Detroit witnessed city workers coaching voters to vote straight Democrat while accompanying them to watch who they were voting for, violating the law and the sanctity of the secret ballot. People that innocently came to vote on November 3rd, who were all excited about their vote, they were happy. They were proud to be citizens of the United States of America. And they went up and they said, I'd like to vote. And they were told that they can't vote. I'm sorry, they were told. I'm sorry. You've already voted. And on top of everything else, We have a company that's very suspect. Its name is Dominion. With the turn of a dial or the change of a chip, you can press a button for Trump and the vote goes to Biden. What kind of a system is this?
Joining us now is Sidney Powell, a distinguished attorney, former federal prosecutor, best-selling author, General Michael Flynn's defense attorney, and as we all know, a great American.
We're finding more and more evidence of this. We now have reams and reams of actual documents from Smartmatic and Dominion, including evidence that they planned and executed all of this. We have evidence of how they flipped the votes, how it was designed to flip the votes, and that all of it has been happening just as we have been saying it has been. Well, we've known from early on in our independent investigation that the entire system was created for the benefit of Venezuela and Hugo Chavez to rig elections to make sure he continued winning. And then it was passed on to Mr. Maduro to do the same.
Smartmatic has provided election technology and support services in Venezuela since 2004. Even in moments of deep political conflict and division, we have been satisfied that the voting process and the count has been completely accurate. It is therefore with the deepest regret that we have to report that the turnout numbers on Sunday, 30th of July for the Constituent Assembly in Venezuela were tampered with. Based on the robustness of our system, we know without any doubt that the turnout of the recent election for a National Constituent Assembly was manipulated. It is important to highlight that similar manipulations are made in manual elections in many countries, but they go undetected because of the lack of electronic security and auditing safeguards. It is important to point out that this would not have occurred if the auditors of all political parties have been present at every stage of the election.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of votes. So we're going to watch that very closely. And after that, you'll watch Pennsylvania and you watch Georgia and you're going to watch Michigan and Wisconsin and you're watching New Hampshire. They found a lot of votes up in New Hampshire just now. You saw that because this was a rigged election. Everybody knows it.
Everything that's just sitting there in Maricopa County and Georgia and Pennsylvania and New Hampshire, they know if that's revealed, everything that they've done, everything that they put into place comes into question. Their deep, dark world will be exposed.
And we know it was exported to other countries by virtue of some of the Dominion executives that proceeded to go about and essentially sell elections to the highest bidder.
That's a smart one.
So this is savage war by the ruling class against everyone.
There are George Soros connections to the entire endeavor. Lord Malik Brown was part of it.
Even though it sounds like a paranoid fever dream, a well-funded cabal of powerful people ranging across industries and ideologies working together behind the scenes to influence perceptions, change rules and laws, steer media coverage, and control the flow of information.
Never gonna happen on our watch. This is America. You picked a fight with the wrong people. We're gonna send that message. We're gonna send that message to George Soros. Get out of our country, George Soros!
One of my colleagues said, well, apparently the word is that when quantum funds started, SC Bank was one of the main backers.
The system is corrupt, and it's rigged, and it's broken, and we're going to change it.
This is a total multinational takeover to gut nationalism and butcher the United States on the altar of the New World Order and world government. And then to stampede the whole world once we fall.
Då kan man ju snabbt komma fram till att digitalisering kommer ha en oerhörd påverkan på arbetslivet och samhället. Och då kommer vi fram till att vi borde vara några stycken som bör jobba ihop tillsammans för att se hur kan vi vidareutveckla. Och inte annat heller än att vi såg att det här egentligen handlar inte om bara företaget, det handlar om hela samhället, politikerna etc. etc. Och ur detta har då det här digital idag kommit.
22 november.
22 november
går den av stapeln.
Då ska vi försöka få ut, och där har vi Stolen with Pride.
We're going to stop the foreign cheating. The era of economic surrender, which is what we've done essentially, is over. But let's also talk about government corruption. No issue better illustrates how corrupt my opponent is than her pay-for-play scandals as Secretary of State. Here is one example.
Sweden and United States are tied together in so many ways, through history, through trade and investments, and also by countless personal relations across the Atlantic.
I also think that the ongoing consultations, which we have on a regular basis between us, is particularly essential as we face so many difficult issues around the world. And Sweden brings its diplomatic heft and its development expertise to nearly every corner of the globe.
In 2009, a telecom giant named Ericsson came under U.S. pressure for selling telecom equipment to several oppressive governments, including Sudan, Syria, and always Iran. This Iran, they're involved in a lot of stuff, aren't they? Some of these regimes use those technologies to monitor and control their own people. In June 2011, Hillary Clinton's State Department began adding goods and services to a list that might be covered under expanded sanctions on Iran and other state sponsors of terrorism. During that time, Erickson sponsored a speech by Bill Clinton, paying him $750,000, his highest paying speech. In April 2012, the Obama administration issued an executive order imposing sanctions on telecom sales to Iran and Syria, but those sanctions did not cover Erickson's work in Iran. I wonder why. A Trump administration will end government corruption. No one will be above the law.
It's a massive amount of additional information to go through that's only been in our hands a short time, but we will be producing more and more of it. It will be coming out more by the day. And also the connections with the Chinese and other countries that were attacking us in this massive cyber Pearl Harbor, as we called it. We know that $400 million of money came into Smartmatic from China only a few weeks before the election.
And that tyranny doesn't come from China. It was set up and designed in China in consultation with the Chinese Communist by David Rockefeller, George Herbert Walker Bush, Henry Kissinger, and others. So you probably want to learn who the other enemies are and who they are and what they're planning.
We are all fighting the same enemy. I don't even believe that in China, President Xi is our enemy. I really don't believe that. I think that President Xi is dealing with a deep state in the CCP just like Trump dealt with here. The people closest to him are sabotaging him.
China is not the deep state. The deep state is the main enemy.
And then we have the people that we don't see. Yes, we know of Soros. We know of others. But there are high-level individuals, especially in other countries, that are pulling a lot of these strings.
This is a Marxist-Leninist Bolshevik takeover run by big tech.
Och en av de sakerna som står för dörren är givetvis den delen av det moderna kriget som handlar om informationshantering, och det är naturligtvis de här techjättarna som alla lydigt betalar licensavgifter till de som har hand om telekominfrastrukturen, alltså transmission och annat då. Det är ju lite som det är. Vem sitter högst upp i den telekominfrastrukturella näringskedjan? Det är ju det. Ja, förutan så kan ingenting fungera. Va? Och det här är ju någonting som folk har haft lite svårt att ta till sig.
And so what's the answer? Well, I told you what's the answer. The globalists must be arrested and their system dismantled now.
I samband med att det här då kommer landa i knät på den globalistfamiljen där till exempel Kina nu uttrycker att de som har behandlat Kina illa kommer att få så att säga betala tillbaka med samma mynt. Och då drar vi oss till minnes då när man från kinesiskt håll säger att det här den senaste tidens tråkigheter och problem de beror helt enkelt på att ett fåtal svenskar på ett brutalt vis lägger sig i Kinas inre angelägenheter. Och det är ju naturligtvis allvarligt.
Their system goes into many different areas like crimes against humanity, treason, sedition. The corruption goes way deep.
And the globalist robber barons set up Mao Zedong in 49 to set up a controlled society, a laboratory of control. And now communist China is the model of the planet.
Thank you very much. In 2001, China was admitted to the World Trade Organization. Our leaders then argued that this decision would compel China to liberalize its economy and strengthen protections to provide things that were unacceptable to us, and for private property, and for the rule of law. 2 decades later, this theory has been tested and proven completely wrong. Tyranny advances under many names and many theories, but it always comes down to the desire for domination. It protects not the interests of many, but the privilege of few. These totalitarian ideologies, combined with modern technology, have the power to excise new and disturbing forms of suppression and domination. Our time is one of great contests, high stakes, and clear choices. The essential divide that runs all around the world and throughout history is once again thrown into stark relief. It is the divide between those whose thirst for control deludes them into thinking they are destined to rule over others, and those people and nations who want only to rule themselves. As the United Kingdom makes preparations to exit the European Union, I have made clear that we stand ready to complete an exceptional new trade agreement with the UK that will bring tremendous benefits to both of our countries. We are working closely with Prime Minister Boris Johnson on a magnificent new trade deal. The truth is plain to see. If you want freedom, take pride in your country. If you want democracy, hold on to your sovereignty. And if you want peace, love your nation. Wise leaders always put the good of their own people and their own country first.
Charles, there's several foreign entities that the Clinton Foundation had. They call them little brothers, if you will, one of which was in Sweden. It looks like they were a shell organization. They didn't have an office. They didn't have employees in Stockholm. They were just a pass-through. Swedish companies that wanted to give money to the Clinton Foundation gave it to this Swedish entity, which passed it on to the U.S. Clinton Foundation. That seems like money laundering to me. Does it to you?
Absolutely. Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, put into place a series of actions to overthrow the secular governments in the Middle East and to replace them with radical Islamic regimes.
That's the end. Once you have open borders, you no longer have a country, folks. I hate to tell you.
This is the battle between good and evil. This is the battle between truth and lies.
But obviously, there is a plot. So what's the objective here? And whose interest can such a plot be? Libya has very good relations with the United States, with the European Union, with African countries. And Libya plays a crucial role in regional and world peace. There are millions of black Africans who could immigrate via the Mediterranean and head for Italy or France, and Libya plays a crucial role in the Mediterranean in terms of stopping that. This issue of imperialism is not really something I believe in here, but we need to look closely at what's happening. This is all very odd. It's very strange.
Remember, the private West central bankers, they have no allegiance. No allegiance to a country, to a people. Their allegiance is to control. It's to debt.
And what major corporations want in this fascist development is to be able to have full movement of workers without borders or boundaries.
That is the land of unconfirmed news. We came, we saw, he died. Did it have anything to do with your visit? No, I'm sure it did.
I don't come from bottom-feeding trash like you. I'm not afraid. All I'm afraid of is failing. All I'm afraid of is bowing down to you murdering trash. All I got to think about is those hundreds of thousands of Christians that you raped and murdered with the jihad armies they put into Syria to slaughter that peaceful country and overturn it where people lived in peace. All I think about is what type of government do we have that engages in these forms of incredible evil?
Completely destroying so many countries in the Middle East, and you know, you have once again these woke politicians who preach about social equity and inclusion and diversity, and they completely destroyed entire countries: Syria, Libya, Iraq. You know, the list goes on and on and on. Somalia, so many countries that they laid waste to.
you're going to get away with it forever. You're not going to get away with it.
They must resist. You can resist.
That was.
UK must resist.
Sweden has been actually one of the sort of backers of the US in many of these kinds of adventures. I say the US, we know whom I mean when I mean the US.
Why she was doing this, I know she has great connections, financial and otherwise, with Saudi Arabia, with Qatar, with Kuwait, with some of the tyrants of the Arab world.
A esta cita. Están viendo ahí al presidente Obama saludando a la familia real saudí.
They shatter other countries and they destabilize their own, and they destabilize their own societies. And then when these problems grow around them, what do they say? Anybody who tries to bring them up, they get called all sorts of names, they face all kinds of problems, and the governments refuse to look at these problems, refuse to address them, won't talk about them, won't come up with solutions to them.
Och det kan man förstå att omvärlden tar avstånd nu. För det här är ju liksom sagt, det här är ju inga nyheter. De har ju sett det här alltså i 100 år. Och vi är stolta över att inte ha varit i krig på 200 år. Det lustiga är att alla andra har varit i krig och vi har tjänat pengar på de krigen. Och inte vi då som befolkning. Utan företrädesvis Investor det senaste århundradet i vart fall.
يعني هو يموت بس مو هسه مو قريبة.
وسوى بينا هيك من صغير كبير، وهذول حوبتهم، حوبة الأطفال، حوبة الأرامل، حوبة الشباب الحلوة اللي راحت.
والله صدام شليت اجعل السلام، اجعل السلام يا الله.
Still wearing his backpack, this boy was in a minibus full of children heading on a weekend school outing in northern Yemen. But as they went through the city of Sada, their bus was hit by an airstrike. A Houthi TV station accused the Saudi Emirati-led coalition of being behind the attack.
But as the truth continually seeps out, and remember, the propaganda cannot stand face to face with truth and facts. Truth and facts will always win out in the end. This is about exposing their entire system. This is about bringing people to justice. It's about showing the American people and the world. Who pulls the strings?
Vi är lite så anknutna till kärnan i det här landet, och det är väl inte längre bort nu än att det är endera dagen här nu så kommer landet att bli mer känt. Fast ur andra perspektiv än tidigare. Någon av de här olika händelseutvecklingarna som sker i omvärlden kommer att slita in Sverige i det här på ett annat sätt. Och då kan man säga att det är inte helt säkert att tonläget är så där jättevänligt mot Sverige längre då. Och det kommer bli liksom lite hårda ord, skulle man kunna säga.
You scum!
Och ja, vem vet, det kanske är bra för den svenska befolkningen. Förutsatt att man då kan hålla huvudet tillräckligt kallt för att förstå att det faktiskt omvärlden säger är sant. Och vad våra egna inhemska politiker säger i princip aldrig har varit sant. Det blir mycket att förklara för många människor helt enkelt.
Jakob Wallenberg, har någon kommentar till svenska folket?
Anytime we want to stand up, anytime we want to recognize the globalists as our enemies, anytime we realize that things are only going to get worse the longer we put up with this, there will be the rediscovery of will and of huevos, and we will start turning the tide back against the tyranny.
Jag är fortfarande nöjd med Stefan Löfven som statsminister. Går allt som planerat så att säga.
That you would not necessarily follow your ruler. You could have both religions in Germany.
Donald, you're probably the best known builder, particularly of great buildings in the city. There's a great deal of question about whether or not the damage and the ultimate destruction of the buildings was caused by the airplanes, by architectural defect, or possibly by bombs or aftershocks. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it was an architectural defect. You know, the World Trade Center was always known as a very, very strong building. Don't forget, that took a big bomb in the basement. Now, the basement is the most vulnerable place because that's your foundation. And it withstood that. And I got to see that area about 3 or 4 days after it took place because one of my structural engineers actually took me for a tour because he did the building. And I said, I can't believe it. The building was standing solid and half of the columns were blown out. I mean, so this was an unbelievably powerful building. If you know anything about structure, it was one of the first buildings that was built from the outside. The steel, the reason the World Trade Center had such narrow windows is that in between all the windows you had the steel on the outside. So you had the steel on the outside of the building. That's why when I first looked, and you had big, heavy I-beams, when I first looked at it, I couldn't believe it because there was a hole in the steel. And this is steel that was, you remember the width of the windows in the World Trade Center, folks. I think you know, if you were ever up there, they were quite narrow. And in between was this heavy steel. I said, how could a plane, even a 767 or 747 or whatever it might have been, how could it possibly go through the steel? I happen to think that they had not only a plane, but they had bombs that exploded almost simultaneously, because I just can't imagine anything being able to go through that wall. Most buildings are built with the steel is on the inside around the elevator shaft. This one was built from the outside, which is the strongest structure you can have, and it was almost just like a can of soup.
The minute we wake up to the globalists and how horrible they are and their plan to keep us bankrupted and paralyzed is the beginning of us digging out of this. And we will be forced to do it. You will get motivated at one point because the New World Order's got things planned for you so bad, you'll be forced to take action.
Eller sköter kanske Stefan Löfven inte sitt jobb riktigt bra, eller? Det är bara en enkel fråga av Stefan Löfven bara, så kan jag gå min väg. Vad tycker du, han gör ett bra jobb eller ett dåligt jobb som statsminister?
I'm
Nej, jag kan gå i vilket fall. Jag hotar. Det är inget hot.
Jag är här privat. Jag skulle uppskatta om du
Okej, jag vill bara svara på frågan bara, tack. Svenska folket har rätt att veta.
I feel good fighting evil. I feel alive. I feel strong.
Jag är en kran i Göteborgs frihamn en disig morgon. Och jag är en kyrkbåt vid Siljans strand. Jag är figuren Rosenbom i flottans Karlskrona. Och jag är Bohusläns karga stenar och sand. Jag är Riddarfjärdens klarblå vatten. Och jag är busstationen på torget i Söderhamn. Jag är alla blommorna i Roslagens famn. Jag är Vingas salta friska västvind. Och jag är Tore Skogman i Malmö Folkets park. Jag är Sommarhagens svängande trägrind. Och jag är Smålands skogbevuxna mark. Jag är eftermiddagens Aftonblad och Expressen. Och jag är kvällens Aktuellt i TV1. Jag är den väldiga pub och NK-stressen. Och jag är mera Värmland än en värmlänning någonsin har sett. Jag är midnattssolens mäktiga sken och jag är ett paket ifrån Ellos i Borås. Jag är violen ifrån bokhandeln i Flen och jag är stämpeluret hos ASEA i Västerås. Jag är Povel Ramel och jag är Evert Taube. Och jag är Pettersson Berger i Treans kanal. Jag kan vara en kostym ifrån Kappahl i en garderob. Och jag kan vara Karl den 16 Gustav i Vita havets sal. Jag älskar mitt land och människorna som bor här. Även om det naturligtvis finns ett och annat som också jag ifrågasätter av och till. Men kärleken och känslan för det land där jag är född och där jag lever mitt liv, den kan ingen ta ifrån mig. För de milsvida skogarna, bergen och sjöarna och människorna, de har på något sätt blivit en del av mig själv. Och människorna som bor här, de tror jag på. I en värld som ibland inte riktigt vet vad den vill. Men jag är glad över att jag får leva och bo i Sverige.
Our nation must be strong in wealth, in might, and in spirit. That is why the United States rigorously defends the traditions and customs that have made us who we are. Like my beloved country, each nation represented in this hall has a cherished history, culture, and heritage that is worth defending and celebrating, and which gives us our singular potential and strength. The free world must embrace its national foundations. It must not attempt to erase them or replace them. and we will never stop working to make peace a reality. Here in the Western Hemisphere, we are joining with our partners to ensure stability and opportunity all across the region. In that mission, one of our most critical challenges is illegal immigration, which undermines prosperity, rips apart societies, and empowers ruthless criminal cartels. Mass illegal migration is unfair, unsafe, and unsustainable for everyone involved. The sending countries and the depleted countries, and they become depleted very fast, but their youth is not taken care of, and human capital goes to waste. The receiving countries are overburdened with more migrants than they can responsibly accept. As jobs were outsourced, a small handful grew wealthy at the expense of the middle class. For years, these abuses were tolerated, ignored, or even encouraged. Globalism exerted a religious pull over past leaders, causing them to ignore their own national interests. But as far as America is concerned, those days are over. Yet here in the United States and around the world, there is a growing cottage industry of radical activists and non-governmental organizations that promote human smuggling. These groups encourage illegal migration and demand the erasure of national borders. Today I have a message for those open border activists who cloak themselves in the rhetoric of social justice. Your policies are not just. Your policies are cruel and evil. You are empowering criminal organizations that prey on innocent men, women, and children. You put your own false sense of virtue before the lives, well-being, and countless innocent people. When you undermine border security, you are undermining human rights and human dignity. Many of the countries here today are coping with the challenges of uncontrolled migration. Each of you has the absolute right to protect your borders. The United States does not seek conflict with any other nation. We desire peace, cooperation, and mutual gain with all. But I will never fail to defend America's interests. America's goal is harmony, and America's goal is not to go with these endless wars that never end.
This is our country. We're going to take it back. You watch it happen. You watch it happen. Because I see American patriots everywhere. And American patriots love America. We're going to take our country back again. It's 1776. God bless you and God bless America.
The EU is the one world government's first stronghold nation state.
And Sweden is a leader in the European Union.
Certainly you have a problem with the immigration. It's caused problems in Sweden. I was one of the first ones to say it. It took a little heat, but that was okay because I proved to be right.
One of the things that intrigues me the most is your effort at the United Nations.
we have an expression in the United States, a slang expression, Sweden punches way above its weight class. Way above its weight class, and it really does. And Sweden is another very, very important part of in Europe where we get an awful lot done together. Europe needs diverse sources of gas, not, in our view, new Nord Stream 2 pipeline. And to lock in greater reliance on Russia at this moment, I think I know it will fundamentally destabilize Ukraine, where you have led in trying to respond to the aggression on the part of Russia.
Trying to respond to the aggression on the part of Russia.
So what's the big message? The big message today, and the big message from all of us, is you have to get involved. You have to get involved. There's no more excuses. There's no more, it's their problem.
Criminals love to brag, they love to celebrate.
I remember going over convincing our team, or others, to convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
But why? Because Burisma was and is their vehicle for corrupt practices in Eastern Europe.
The fact is, there was never an administration more corrupt than the Obama-Biden administration. There was never. How about the Russia hoax? It turned out that they were the ones that did the Russia hoax. It was them. Same Ukrainian energy executive even sent Hunter an email saying, quote, we urgently need your advice on how you could use your influence. In other words, Hunter was being paid for access to his vice president father, who was specifically put in charge of Ukraine and Russia. And people should pay for the crimes they committed.
Destabilize Ukraine, where you have led in trying to respond to the aggression on the part of Russia.
Hello, this is Ann-Linda. We should concentrate on sanction against Russia. We don't want to have sanction against Germany. If it would have been possible to stop Nord Stream 2 earlier, that would have been another issue. But now we will never ever have a unified position to stop Nord Stream 2 at this point, and that means that it will only show that EU is split We need to have a strong, unified message from EU towards Russia.
I'm also embarrassed to ask, but the fact that our democratic organizations now need funding, including for new investigation against Russian officials, and it would be great if Sweden would help us, for example, through Sweden's Government Agency for Development Cooperation.
Well, actually, we have about 38 million euro for support to civil society and human rights defenders and so on during the coming 5 years. I'm not sure about the details with that, but I think that it's possible to, if you can have a contact with you on or via the embassy, if it's possible, because I don't know the technical details.
You know that the problem that we can't use it openly now. You know that there's some laws that Russian Parliament adopted recently about foreign financing. So we could use it through our representative office in Ukraine or in some Baltic states.
I think that maybe we should not discuss this on the phone.
Yeah.
But I think it's possible that someone else can talk to you after our call.
That is a declaration of war.
It's irregular warfare. This is not about bullets, bombs, armies marching in. That's something that you can see very, very clearly. Irregular warfare is something that you really can't see, understand right away. You really need to delve into it because a lot of the things happening are behind the scenes. But when you start to look at it and you step back and you take a 20,000-foot view, you can start to see things a lot clearer.
And I'll tell you right now, it's not Russia. Okay, it's not. It's they always blame Russia because, you know, Russia doesn't want anything to do with their New World Order, Great Reset, and that's why we always hear Russia, 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 because they hide behind a cloak of all these different groups where it's really them. Right, people have to keep an eye on this Belarus story because it's big. So is the Myanmar story, and we're getting and Ukraine. But well, our media is in on it. They're lying to us. They're lying. They're totally lying.
Myanmar just overthrew the government with their military, right, and gave it back to the people. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, it was a color revolution. Same players that are at play in Belarus, same players at play in Haiti, and everywhere that there's been a color revolution. Ukraine, here, we're in the middle of one. It's the same guys. It's the same people. It's a bunch of Soros NGOs, the central banking cabal. Right? Just like Myanmar. They're covering Myanmar saying that the military took over. No, the same thing that happened here happened there. The same cabal, the color revolutionaries, they went into Myanmar and Soros, Clinton Global, Crisis International, they started with their NGOs, they did the whole thing, and they put in that woman. She is George Soros and Obama and Hillary Clinton's girl. And they stole the election, everyone knew it, and the military took over in Myanmar.
This is infiltration from within. And this is just the tip of the iceberg.
So we will have further discussion on further restrictive measures, and we will for the first time use the EU's human rights sanction regime, the one that is known as the EU's Magnitsky regime.
James William Thomas Ford, entering a restaurant in Moscow, former Second Secretary for Political Affairs at the British Embassy, designated an undeclared MI6 agent, married to Elizabeth Grenberg, designated Swedish intelligence agent. Following him in is Russian opposition figure Vladimir Ashurkov, Alexei Navalny's right-hand man, executive manager of the FBK Foundation, currently living in the UK. Surveillance of this meeting was conducted by Russian counterintelligence, keeping an eye on Special Agent Ford.
If we had more money, we would expand our activities, of course, with a little money.
Financing. So we could use it through our representative office in Ukraine.
Ukraine.
Работает РПГ! Выстрел!
Are working together in Ukraine on these biolabs. It was an international conspiracy. And if you have polar opposite governments, allegedly, working on biological weapons, and then you had the coronavirus coming out of this, and you have closed most of these loops that show this is true, then I believe it had to come out of the World Economic Forum. And so we're involved in this program. This goes back into the Obama years.
Ukraine is the center of corruption with regard to illegal arms dealing, and also serves as the Democrats' shadow organization for corrupt activities such as child sex trafficking and drug running.
We're doing business with terrorists and bioweapons in a corrupt nation. Ukraine was ranked as the third most corrupt nation on the face of the earth.
We were now been given so much weaponry, not because, as some say, West is helping us. He says, not because they want the best for us, but because we perform the tasks set up by the West. Because we are the only ones who are ready to do them. Because we have fun. We have fun killing and we have fun fighting. And they like, wow, let's see what's going to happen.
A message from the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, to all the nations of the world. Dear citizens of our wonderful planet Earth, I, the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, decided to address all of you directly, bypassing diplomats, your rulers, and journalists. Once again, the Russian people of Russia are forced to sacrifice their lives, protecting the world from Nazism and fascism. We exchanged 50 of our prisoners of war for 50 Ukrainian soldiers. Ukrainian soldiers received medical assistance in our hospitals, ate 3 large meals a day, and returned home. We received Russian soldiers with their fingers cut off and reproductive organs. Not even the Nazis did this during the last war. We will present this evidence in a future court. Shame on anyone who supports these scoundrels now. Your rulers in the United States, Europe, Japan, Australia, and other countries have stood on the side of these subhumans who have put civilians, pregnant women, and children in front of them, intentionally harming prisoners of war. It's hard for me to imagine a healthy person supporting these monsters. Ukrainian citizens complain on Facebook that atrocities in Ukraine are caused by the Ukrainian army, not the Russians. The Ukrainian army is killing our own citizens. Creepy stories from Mariupol, Ukraine. A resident of the city told how the Nazis did not let civilians out of the basements and hammered the doors with nails, turning the apartments into combat positions. In this video, Chechen and Russian special forces are rescuing Ukrainian citizens that were barricaded in their homes and sealed up by Nazis in Mariupol. Ukrainian Nazis protect themselves from bullets of civilians. Their rulers, under the pretext of terrible Russia, also decided to transfer the burden of high prices and upcoming troubles to the population, both in Ukraine and in you. Nazis live well behind the backs of ordinary citizens, and ordinary people should suffer. These are identical crimes in both Ukraine and the West. If we unite them in another week, there will be no Nazis in Ukraine. Normal life will return to Europe, the USA, and other countries, and together we will judge Ukrainian Nazis and all the rulers who support Nazism in the new tribunal. Our goal is the right one. We will defeat the Nazism. I would like to share this win with everyone together as soon as possible. Our goal is the right one.
The point being that there's a war being waged against us.
Right.
And the warmongers, the people guilty of waging that war, have the mainstream media in their pocket because they own it.
Putin actually came out and said there are certain government people and deep state players that worship Satan.
When Donald Trump became president, the Ukrainian corruption became a case of inevitable discovery by Trump if he were to be elected president. This is why Obama sponsored illegal spying through the Fusion GPS into Trump.
And the reason they tried to impeach him was, how dare you go after us in Ukraine? Because Trump was after this information, I guarantee you.
It's crazy. Drain the swamp. We're going to drain the swamp. And the whole world picked it up. The Biden family treated the vice presidency as a for-profit corporation flying around the globe, collecting millions of dollars from China and Ukraine and Russia and other countries.
Hi, everybody. You've seen the story by now, or maybe you haven't because big tech is trying to censor it. But Hunter Biden's hard drive has been discovered, turned over to Rudy Giuliani, and, well, the rest is not yet history because, well, people don't know if they want to really look at this stuff, and they're not asking Joe Biden about it. By the way, he's not denying it, huh?
He should be prosecuted for this. These are major bribes
in which he sold out the United States to China. And there's a sexual depravity to this that is disgusting.
China's been around for 4,000 years, right? They've had good runs and they've had bad runs, okay? But one thing they know, and the reason they're still organized as a nation over 4,000 years, right? They know how to handle allies and they know how to handle bad guys, okay? Now what they've done is they've got this system called barbarian management, and they know how to manage barbarians. The way they manage the barbarians is they take the leaders of the barbarians and they give them a taste of the good life. And you're going to be something special. You're going to get a special deal. Now, what happens back into the tributary state is whatever happens. That's your problem.
真实存在的是不同的利益群体。现在美国社会分裂特别严重，精英圈我们称之为 establishment 权贵圈，尤其这个精英圈里边的有一个群体，我们称之为 deep state 隐形政府。
In the United States, what they have done for 25 and 30 years is played as a barbarian state, barbarian management. Okay, they incentivize our elites.
There's a memo in here that says that 10% of the money that was being whacked up, that was $10 million a year, and then 50% of the profits with 3 Chinese communists, one of whom was a Chinese intelligence operative. That 10% of that was going to H for the big guy. So we've identified the big guy several ways. One, right after that text message, email rather, there's an email that is asking for keys for the office they're going to share with the Chinese communists.
To transport the biological weapons from Ukraine to Wuhan, this was first offered to Hillary Clinton and she wouldn't touch it. So that's why they went to Burisma, and then they created the subsidiary Rosemont Seneca to try to cover their tracks, and this is where Hunter Biden came in.
I'm very glad to see you again. We've met sometimes before, but mostly in Washington.
Joe Biden is the one who used his son to be a bag man for 20 years when he knew his son was a drug addict. This is not about Hunter Biden. It's about Joe Biden. It's about what a crook he is and what a horrible father he is. I will tell you, this is probably the worst scandal I've ever seen, and there's a depravity to it that's horrendous. Well, this is really a very, very sensitive one. There's a text message to his father in which he says the following, and he's discussing his sister-in-law, who for quite some time was his lover. And he says, she told my therapist that I was sexually inappropriate. This would be with a unnamed 14-year-old girl. When she says that I FaceTime naked with the unnamed 14-year-old girl. And the reason I can't have her out to see me is because I'll walk around naked smoking crack, talking tom girls on FaceTime. When she was pressed, she said that the unnamed 14-year-old girl never said anything like that, but the bottom line is that I created and caused a very unsafe environment for the kids. This is supported by numerous pictures of underage girls.
This is a Chi-Com globalist takeover of pedophiles. And so here we are at the end of this whole deal where pedophiles run everything and they're going to screw our kids. I mean, that's what this comes down to, is they want our children.
got to look up at the center photographer up top of it. You ready here?
Thank you. Thank you.
These individuals, they use human trafficking, child trafficking to push their agenda.
And this is real evil we're facing. I mean, it's a club of pedophiles at the top. They're pretty much all pedophiles.
Is there just a vacuum? Or is there Satan, where once, long ago, a soul resided?
Because they don't want you to be able to challenge anything they do. And it's a bunch of weird drug addict, pedophile cokeheads.
They got this system called barbarian management. And they know how to manage barbarians. The way they manage barbarians is they take the leaders of the barbarians and they give them a taste of the good life. And you're going to be something special. You're going to get a special deal. Now, what happens back into the tributary state is whatever happens. That's your problem.
While you hand your children over to them, they finally give you a euthanasia pill at 75. That's what the author of Obamacare, Ezekiel Emanuel, says. Everyone should be executed at 75.
They're trying desperately, and they're succeeding in creating a slave society.
I mean, this is really a criminal international consortium.
So how do you counter this? You show the people everything. You expose the deep state. People must see it all. Knowledge is power. The deep state players, the way they get paid off in the end, they use book deals. They use the book deals as a payoff. They funnel the money through that. That's what they do.
You're in a war, in a globalist takeover.
Basically, the U.S. is providing these flows for us. You make war and we get refugees. So the largest ethnic minority in Sweden now is the Iraqis, which is the largest group. We have a very large Iranian group, a large Somali group, quite a large Afghanistani group. And we think that this is basically an asset for the Swedish society.
And if people want to know what comes down the line, just look at South Africa. What's going on there?
Why would the establishment keep pushing this? Why won't they stop?
They're demonic, maniacal. totally possessed by evil, and they want to destroy us.
Residents lined up outside shuttered shops to get whatever food was available. This after the government announced that days of protests, looting and riots could lead to food and medicine shortages in the next few weeks. The government has been under pressure to increase boots on the ground to quickly put a lid on the violence pummeling an already struggling economy.
Vi här i Sverige behärskar osedvanligt dåligt den verkliga problematiken i Sydafrika. Hur skulle vi kunna göra det? Vi har ju ingenting som motsvarar detta. Och har man inte levt med de där människorna och levt ibland de där, då kan man inte bedöma det.
Du har gjort det?
Du
har levt i Kongo och det sedan flera år?
Jag vet ungefär hur den här, jag vet ganska väl vad den här konflikten handlar om.
Dozens of men took matters into their own hands and cracked down on looters undeterred by security forces.
Tycker du att apartheidsystemet var bra?
Apartheidsystemet hade väldiga felaktigheter i vissa hänseenden och hade en del som var nödvändig under de förhållanden som rådde. Ja.
Så du försvarar apartheidsystemet?
Nej, jag försvarar det inte totalt, men jag vet kanske bättre än de flesta hur oerhört svårt det är att den här övergången. Hur oerhört svårt det är. Den har misslyckats i hela Afrika i övrigt. Och den skiljer sig i Sydafrika på ett markant sätt från resten av Afrika. Och det är det att den vita befolkningen har inget hemland annat än det hemlandet. I alla de andra tidigare kolonierna så var det ju så att den vita befolkningen hade ett hemland att återvända till. Finns inte här.
Looting has hit supply chains and transport links, especially in the southeastern province of KwaZulu-Natal, and the violence has now escalated, wrecking hundreds of businesses. Dozens of cars have been burnt and many small, medium-sized and micro-enterprises have been completely destroyed in the ongoing unrest. More than 800 retail shops had been looted following the extensive disruption of food, fuel and medicine supply chains.
Det låter på dig som om du menar att de svarta inte klarar sig utan de vita.
Det är absolut klart att de inte gör. Om det så är den vita befolkningen som är där nu eller de får in någon annan. Absolut, de har helt enkelt inte den kompetens som krävs.
Vad beror det på då?
Då kommer man in på väldigt svåra frågor. För oss svenskar.
De ska vi inte väja för.
De har andra förutsättningar.
Beroende på gener?
Utveckling. De är ungefär på den nivå som vi var för 100 år sedan. Eller 150 år sedan.
Men om du säger detta till en välutbildad person, svart person i Sydafrika eller en Tanzanias president, blir de inte rasande då?
Nej, märkvärdigt nog blir de inte.
Vad säger de då?
De säger att du har rätt. För de har samma problem. De som sitter där, de har precis samma problem med sina egna.
Parts of the country may soon be running short of basic provisions.
Men jag menar, jag jobbar ihop med en svart kille nu här i Stockholm. Alltså för honom är det ju fruktansvärt att höra dig säga sådana saker.
Ja, det får vara det då. Men man ska komma ihåg att det finns alltså ett fåtal mycket välutbildade svartingar. Och med dem har du i princip inga större definitionsproblem. Men med den stora gruppen har du allvarliga definitionsproblem.
Appealing to the pride and dignity of the Zulu nation, newly appointed monarch Misizulu KwaZulu-Ntini also called for calm in the province.
De har
the king expressed disappointment that members of the Zulu nation had taken part in the carnage, but acknowledged that poverty and unemployment
De är ungefär på den nivå som vi var för 100 år sedan. Eller 150 år sedan. Svartingar.
I think the first point to make is that what is being broadcast on mainstream media is not a fraction of the truth and the reality. Saatlanders, being the organization that we are, with the number of members that we have, is receiving footage that the media is not dreaming of showing. It is far, far, far worse. It's not hard to tell that the same script is being adhered to. It's not difficult to see the parallels. It doesn't require very much wisdom or genius to observe that we are some sort of a harbinger, some sort of a guinea pig, some sort of a trial run.
Small businesses are the hardest hit and may not recover from the unrest. The South African Property Owners Association has revealed that more than 200 malls have been looted or destroyed, and more than 600 stores burnt or damaged thus far.
I said, you look at all the looting that is happening in the shopping centers and the malls and everything else, the devastation. But I said the major looting that is happening is what's going on with these ANC politicians, these Marxists. They're looting the country, as you've talked about in the past, and they're the biggest thieves.
And there's a lot at stake. Too much for us to go into now, but you're quite familiar with the extent of the state capture, as we call it here in South Africa, of the past 27 years of ANC rule. They prefer to use the term themselves, rule, than govern. And under ANC rule, the country has become some sort of a breadbasket for the ruling party. And there are trillions and trillions and trillions involved, which nobody is ever convicted, because the entire African National Congress is in on it. So it's a worthwhile fight. It's worth being dishonest. It's worth being corrupt. It's worth committing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of murders along the way. When you're playing for those sorts of stakes, it doesn't make it right, but it's certainly worth it.
They dangle the bribes like a carrot, and we could have said, no, thank you. I mean, yeah, in theory. But I mean, when you have been poor, for a very long time, and somebody says, well, I'm going to give you 20 million.
1999 säljer Sverige ja till Sydafrika för 15 miljarder kronor. Nästan genast börjar rykten gå om mutor, men undersökningar stoppas på högsta politiska nivå i Sydafrika. Men nu avslöjas i en brittisk polisutredning hur jättelika summor betalas till så kallade agenter. Deras uppgift har varit att övertyga Sydafrika och köpa JAS. Totalt får agenterna cirka 1,5 miljard kronor. Nästan alla pengar går genom hemliga bolag i skatteparadis ägda av Saabs brittiska partner och delägare BAE. Enligt brittisk polis kan BAE bara redovisa vad det är agenterna gjort för en liten del av pengarna. Vad huvuddelen varit betalning för kan eller vill de inte säga. Inte heller agenterna säger något. Den brittiska polisens slutsats är att pengarna används för att köpa inflytande. Vapenaffären har kidnappat den unga sydafrikanska demokratin, säger politiska kommentatorer här. Och faktum är att den i sin förlängning fått befrielserörelsen ANC att delas i två partier. Den har fått en president att avgå, och den som troligen blir landets nästa president i april i år, Jacob Zuma, han kommer troligen att leda landet samtidigt som han är åtalad för korruption i samband med vapenaffären.
And he leads a faction in the African National Congress that is rival to the faction that's now in power. And he was deposed, as you rightly say. He still hasn't been brought to book on any of these charges, the 789 at last count, I think. But the Constitutional Court, which is our apex court, convicted him of can't think of the term now, failing to appear before the court,
right,
and sentenced him to a 15-month sentence in jail. And this, of course, in African terms, is beyond unacceptable. You simply do not jail an elder, a man of power and influence. It's not the done thing at all. saturated the entire state with his people, predominantly Zulu people, during his tenure. So the army is effectively more loyal to him than to the current president. The police force is probably more loyal to him than to the current president because they're all his appointees. So he's gotten these old national intelligence guys and whoever else to drive this supposedly spontaneous campaign, but it's patent nonsense.
Du brukar säga att näringslivet är en bra fredsapostel. Vad menar du med det?
Jag menar det att affärsmän har en ovanligt god förmåga att handla med nästan vem som helst. Politiker har nästan alltid ett behov av att profilera sig som affärsmännen totalt saknar, annat än när det gäller att profilera sig mot sina egna konkurrenter. Men i affärer så är det bara affären som sådan som är intressant. Och för affärsmannen så krävs det att 2 sidor är tillfredsställda när affären är gjord och inte att en är tillfredsställd, som så ofta är fallet i politiken.
Is there something they could do now at this point, the Swedish government?
Pay us back. Take back your gripping and pay us back. And maybe come clean. No, come clean. If they were to come clean and say, yes, some of the things that we did were probably somewhat unscrupulous, it could force the hand of others as well, you know.
But it was Zuma that was doing the kill the white man, kill the Boer rallies, wasn't he? Wasn't that the same guy?
Sizobatubula ngembamba bazobaleka tu. Sizobatubula ngembamba bazobaleka tu. Hulipul sizogoshaya.
We are taking this thing deadly seriously.
Sizogoshaya uzobaleka tu. Sizobatubula bazobaleka tu.
He's also the guy who admitted in court that he raped a certain woman, yes. But he got off because his defense was that in his culture it was acceptable. But he explicitly admitted that he forced himself upon her against her protestations.
Wow.
He's a wicked man by any standards.
Ikapineti soijubula izobalega jubula Hulipu sizogoshaya.
we understand the direction in which we're going. We're conscious of it.
Stop them. They're not going to stop until they get everything from everybody. But you guys are the next on the list, aren't you? The farmers.
This is video of whites being bullwhipped by black communists because they're white.
At the moment, there's a coalescence of bills before the parliament that it's just going to wipe us out completely. The one is a series of laws pertaining to unfairness or equality. And it states explicitly that you may be convicted for treating somebody unfairly, even if you didn't know that you were doing it, and even if they didn't suffer any harm. There's another bill before the Parliament which will empower the Minister of Labour and or his delegates at lowest ground level to enter any business at any time and summarily instruct the business owner to change the composition of his workforce, management, and or ownership. The courts may not get involved. In other words, you cannot go to court to appeal against this. The local authorities of the African National Congress may expropriate your land without compensation. So this is the final iteration, as it were, of this expropriation without compensation bill that has been moving slowly through the system over the past year and a half or so. The latest is that this will be implemented and the courts may not interfere at local level. So I come to you, David, and I say, you've had that farm too long. It's now going to go to my brother-in-law and you can do absolutely nothing about it.
Having the weapons, having the organization, and presenting a strong front is a deterrence to these people's acts of aggression.
The government is also proposing a law now, which is an amendment to the Firearms Control Act, whereby nobody will be permitted to possess a firearm for the purposes of self-defense. So people in the suburbs of South Africa will have absolutely no defense whatsoever against against criminals, and criminals are going to take license from that. So people are adjusting to the harsh reality of this communist plan described so very well in the African National Congress's documents pertaining to national democratic revolution.
Fått befrielserörelsen ANC, befrielserörelsen ANC, 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 ANC.
You know, you only have to read Marx's writings on Satanism, his famous two satanic poems, and others that hint at it, but the two most famous ones.
Maybe we should not discuss this on the phone.
And so you have to wonder, is any of this interlinked, and what is the plan behind it? Because it's not just purely grassroots going on in all these countries, of course.
There will be nothing left of us. It's purely a matter of mathematics, not doctrine, not sentiment, just arithmetic, really.
You make war and we get refugees. So.
This whole world, this whole life is an experience and a test of who you are.